Hello everyone, welcome to the 12 days of Christmas. Christmas has always been my absolute favorite time of year. Although it doesn't really get cold here that often, I still enjoy it because it's a time for family to get together. Let's get into what you'll need to follow along. Of course, you're going to need a pencil, eraser, watercolor paper, watercolor paint, a brush. For watercolor paper, I'm using 100% cotton cold pressed paper, and I am cutting them to postcard size. For paints, I'm using Holbein artist grade watercolor paints. Throughout each video, I will be labeling what paint I'm using at that time. For a paintbrush, I'm just using a small round. This is a number 4. Of course, you also need 2 cups of water, one for clean and one for dirty. Optional is paper tape and a clipboard. Additionally, I will be putting all the outlines on Patreon for download. So if you want to support me, you can go over to my Patreon and sign up as a member. Then you'll get all the outlines at the same time as the video comes out. All right, thank you so much. Let's get into painting. Okay. Welcome to day 2 of the 12 days of Christmas. Today we're going to paint this beautiful bauble. We're also using a lot of similar colors as day 1. However, we want to make this part look shiny and gold, and we're going to do that with really strong contrasts. So if we look at the reference photo, we can see that around the edges is quite dark, it has a shadow, but then we have this huge highlight where the light source is coming from. So for the first layer, we're going to paint dark purple all over everything except for those highlights. And we want to blend it into the highlights, so we're starting with clear water all over the surface of the Christmas bauble, leaving out those highlights. All right, once that's done, let's activate our purple. And you can see that it's really quite dark on the sides. So you can go in really saturated with this. Just kind of tap on each side, going all the way around. When we get to here, we can just paint up into that section there. Make sure you leave that highlight out. And then maybe a little bit here. All right, clean off your brush and just kind of blend it in around. You can kind of scrub the paper. Try not to make your brush too wet, just damp enough to scrub around. You kind of want to move some of that purple color around to take away the white space, but you don't want it to be too dark right in the middle. Also this part right here, this is the part where it's kind of reflecting the table, so it's not as dark. All right, very good. I'm gonna go in with one more really dark purple, just at the bottom here, where there's that contact shadow, and then the edges on the left. More in the middle here. All right, clean off our brush, and then maybe we can do kind of watery on the bottom here for the contact shadow. Okay, that's the first layer, so we're gonna wait for it to dry. Normally we'd paint this as well, but it might bleed into each other, so we're going to wait for it to dry, and then we're going to go in and paint that up there. We want to make sure that we're all doing the same layer at the same time. So let it dry, paint up here, and then we'll go into the second layer of the entire painting. All right, we've let it dry, and we're going to go in and do the first layer of the attachment to the bauble. So this is a gold, shiny attachment, and we're going to start with a really light yellow ochre wash over the entire thing. It's really small, so I'm going to just use clear water to water that down. Too much paint on my brush. So we're just trying to get rid of the white space and paint the first layer. All right, with that, the first layer is done. We're going to wait for it to really dry completely before doing the second layer. All right, the next thing we're going to do is paint over everything a layer of red. So get your brush ready. We're going to paint over everything. You can make it a bit more watery so that it's easier to cover the entire surface. Really like how that purple is shining through. I'm just giving it a bit of depth. Now clean off your brush. With a damp brush, you're going to want to just pick up a little bit of that highlight there. Same as that tiny one here. There we go. All right, next, while it's still wet, I'm gonna add a purple again to the very bottom. Make it even darker, a second layer. And then just around the edge on the left. Make sure your paint is really saturated so it shows up nice and dark. One more part is right here, right underneath that highlight. Just a tiny bit. So you can see how it's starting to bleed through. So you're gonna have to go in, clean off your brush, and swipe that highlight out again. And then this part here, it's a little bit dry. So with a damp brush, I'm just gonna scrub a little bit so that it blends. Same as right here. I think I'm gonna leave that. Just take out a little bit more for that highlight. All right, we'll let that dry, go back to purple, and make one more kind of contact shadow on the ground. Clean off your brush, and Now we're going to paint the class, the attachment. Try to make sure you leave out those highlights. Because it has kind of detail on it. So I kind of want to leave things out just to show like, hey, there is some detail on this. And then this part's a little bit difficult. We just want to paint a little bit of that hoop. I can see there's some stuff and edges being created here. So I'm taking a really dry brush, just trying to scrub a little bit, just so that that doesn't show. All right, we're moving on to our final layer. I have erased out some of the pencil lines so that they're not so obvious. Now we're gonna go in with another layer of red. And this time we're going to mix in that yellow ochre. Why? Just to warm it up a little bit, because it's starting to feel very cool. All right, so just drop in a little bit of yellow ochre to the point where it's starting to look a little bit warm. And I'm just going to paint a little bit of clear water so that things are easier to move around, because you know this is quite a small brush and the paint we're using is quite saturated. You want to paint over everything, don't leave anything out. Alright, take purple, drop in that final contact shadow, clean off your brush, and do some lifting. There we go. Blend this out. As you can see, it's kind of pooling here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my semi-damp brush and I'm just lifting some of that water out by touching the brush to it so that it kind of soaks up some of the paint. There we go. I kind of just use my fingers sometime. I don't mind if they get a little bit dirty. Let's pick up that highlight and once again do this highlight here a few more times. Really lift so that you can get that contrast. Alright, with those parts done, I'm going to take our yellow ochre, mix it with a little bit of burnt umber so we make that darker as well. It's going to go in and add a little bit of detail. So you want to put that dark right next to the light so it really pops out. It's a little bit hard to add so much detail to this because this brush is not exactly a sharp point, but just go around and paint on the edges of that. I want to blend this out more. Once this dries, what we're going to do is going to paint a little bit like what we did with the gift box. We're going to paint a little bit around so that we can really see what those details are. All right, for our final layer, we're going to activate that green around on the inside. Then maybe just scratch some around like this. Make sure we paint all around that. Okay, then I'm going to take some clear water and just splat it around. There we go, and then we have that visual interest of, we can see clearly what the ring is, and we can see this edge, it's kind of contrasting with this shadow here. And then also because it's not completely dry, some of the red has seeped out into the green. Maybe we can just add a little bit more there. Now it looks really interesting. All right, I hope you enjoyed painting this Christmas bauble for day 2, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 3.